They said she was just a tourist, another quiet woman in her late 20s renting a cabin by the edge of the dunes, who spent her mornings barefoot in the tide, building sandcastles while the rest of the world scrolled past her. But what the beachgoers saw that day changed everything. If you believe real heroes never need to prove they are one, like and subscribe, because this story will stay with you. It began on a warm August morning, the kind where the ocean glitters like 1,000 broken mirrors, and even the wind sounds sleepy. Emma Rayner sat cross-legged near the shore, packing the wet sand into perfect, symmetrical towers. Children ran past her with buckets, laughing. She smiled politely, but didn't join them. To the casual eye, she looked like peace itself, sun on her hair, calm face, eyes fixed on her castle. But to anyone who looked closer, her towers weren't random. The walls formed rings, the edges shaped in precise arcs, like fortifications. She wasn't sculpting a dream, she was drawing memory. An old fisherman leaned on his stick nearby and chuckled. "That one's serious about her castles," he said. "Looks like she's planning a war." The joke made people laugh, but Emma didn't. She pressed a ridge of sand flat, brushed her fingers clean, and stared at the horizon as if listening to something no one else could hear. Then came the faintest click, just a soft, metallic whisper near her wrist. Her hand froze. A tiny green light blinked beneath her bracelet, the kind of flash you'd miss unless you were watching closely. Her breathing slowed, her head tilted slightly to one side, and under the crash of waves she whispered words no one around her understood. "Scout to base, channel open. Enemy approaching." The laughter died around her. The kid stopped. The fisherman blinked. "What did she just say?" someone murmured. And before anyone could ask again, a low, distant hum rolled across the beach, a sound that didn't belong to the wind or the sea. It grew louder, deeper, until even the umbrellas trembled against their poles. People turned their heads to the sky, squinting against the glare, and there it was, a gray helicopter cutting across the horizon, flying low and deliberate. Tourists pulled out their phones. The blades chopped through the quiet as Emma rose to her feet, brushing the sand off her hands with eerie calm. "What's happening?" a woman asked. Emma didn't answer. She touched her bracelet again, voice steady. "Confirm signal. This frequency's been silent for years." The reply came sharp and panicked, a man's voice distorted by static. "Scout? That can't be. You were Kia 3 years ago. Identify yourself." The beach fell silent. The fisherman's mouth opened. "Kia," someone echoed. Emma closed her eyes. For a second, the waves reflected her past, the desert sun, the echo of gunfire, the faces of a team she once called family. She'd been recon specialist Emma Rayner, codename Scout, part of Echo Legion, a recon unit that never came home whole. Her mission had ended in flames and smoke, her survival written off as impossible. But she had survived, barely. The nightmares never stopped, and neither did the guilt. She'd moved north, changed her name on paper, told herself she was done being a soldier. Until that signal came back. "Scout, enemy approaching" wasn't just a phrase. It was a distress call. Someone, somewhere, was in danger, and they'd used her channel to say so. Her eyes snapped open. Far beyond the surf, thin gray smoke rose against the horizon from the cliffs eastward, like a signal. She turned to the crowd, calm but commanding. "Everyone needs to move off the shore. Now." The tone in her voice carried something no one dared question. Even the fishermen obeyed. Parents called their kids in, unsure why they were running, but trusting her anyway. She scanned the coastline with the precision of someone who'd done this before, reading patterns in the wind, calculating distance, terrain, time. Her sandcastle still sat there behind her, walls perfectly aligned with the cliffs. What had looked like a child's game was a map, a miniature version of this very beach, its ridges pointing toward the cliffs and a shallow channel beside them. She'd built the field before the fight even started. "Base, confirm smoke at Sector 9, she said quietly into her bracelet. The voice answered, breaking through the static. "Scout, how are you even alive?" She gave a small, tired smile. "Long story." The chopper roared overhead now, sweeping low, and from its belly, something metallic dropped. A drone, or maybe a signal flare. People gasped and scattered, but Emma stood firm, her hair whipping in the downdraft. One of the tourists grabbed her arm. "You're insane, you'll get hurt." She gently pulled free. "I've already been hurt, she said softly. The helicopter banked sharply, moving toward the cliffs. Emma followed its line of sight and saw dark shapes near the rocks, small, fast, deliberate. She didn't need a closer look to know what they were. Her heart pounded once, hard, like an old drum she thought she'd buried. Her voice steadied. This isn't training. Someone's out there. She took a breath that smelled of salt and fear and memory. Around her, phones kept recording, voices whispering disbelief. Is this real? Is she military? Was she dead? She ignored them all. Every sound faded until only the ocean and the rotor hum remained. Her castle stood there like a memory of order and chaos. Then she said the words again, softly, but this time they carried across the water. Scout to base. I'm reactivating. She began walking toward the cliffs, the sandcastle crumbling behind her as the tide reached it. By the time the waves erased her footprints, she was already halfway across the beach, the crowd watching a woman they thought they knew become someone they didn't understand. Later, when the reports came in, no one could explain how she knew what was coming or how she organized the evacuation so fast. All they remembered was the sound of her voice, calm and sharp, slicing through panic like a compass in a storm. And by evening, when someone finally found her name, they realized the impossible. The woman on the beach, the one who built castles out of sand, wasn't a tourist at all. She was Echo Legion's lost scout, and she had just come back online. By the time first responders made it to the beach, chaos had already turned into choreography. Tourists stood in tight groups behind the dunes, guided there by nothing more than a woman's calm orders. Emma Rayner, once presumed dead, now stood barefoot in the wet sand like a conductor before an orchestra, every movement deliberate, every word precise. She directed rescue boats to flank the eastern edge, shouted coordinates to the helicopter crew overhead, and pointed toward the smoke blooming from the cliffs. Sector 9, move fast. There's movement near the rocks, she said into her wristband. Her voice carried with the authority of someone who'd been obeyed before. The paramedics didn't question her, and neither did the police who'd just arrived. They didn't know who she was, only that she spoke with the kind of certainty people follow when seconds matter. Above, the helicopter tilted, lowering until the spray of salt hit everyone's faces. Scout, confirm, came the voice through the calm, hesitant, almost reverent. You were Kia? She didn't look up. Negative, she replied, still breathing. And you've got company on the cliffs. Silence followed. Then, copy that, Scout. Eyes on your 6. The crowd stared, realization dawning. This wasn't play acting. The woman they'd dismissed as a quiet tourist was someone else entirely. Emma scanned the horizon, then broke into a sprint toward the smoke. She moved like she'd never stopped training, cutting through the rising tide, hair plastered to her face. The officers called after her, but she didn't slow down. She climbed the slick rock wall in half the time it should have taken, her hands finding holds with memory, not sight. When she reached the ridge, she dropped low and saw them, 2 figures, armed and shouting in a language she hadn't heard since deployment, dragging a man in a shredded uniform toward a half-submerged raft. The man's vest bore the same faded insignia as hers, Echo Legion. You've got to be kidding me, she whispered, eyes burning. She tapped her comm twice, signaling her position, then drew a flare from her belt, an instinct she hadn't forgotten. The red light shot skyward, burning against the fog like a heartbeat. The helicopter roared overhead a second later, flooding the cliffs with blinding white. The kidnappers froze, and within seconds ropes dropped, soldiers descending fast and hard. The first shout came through the storm of sound. Cover her! But Emma was already moving, tackling one of the men off balance, forcing him into the tide pool below. The scuffle was fast, efficient, and when it ended, both captors were disarmed, the hostage pulled to safety. The lead soldier, young, wide-eyed, helped Emmy up. Ma'am, Rayner? But you're dead. Yeah, she said, brushing sand from her hands. It didn't stick. The chopper pilot landed nearby, rushing out as the others secured the scene. He stopped cold when he saw her. Scout, he breathed, voice breaking with emotion. We thought we lost you. Emma gave a small nod, watching the waves crash against the cliffs below. You did, she said softly. But I found my way back. For a long moment, no one spoke. The storm had passed, the danger gone, and all that remained was the strange quiet that follows adrenaline. Down on the beach, the tourists stood in silence, their phones forgotten, staring at the woman who'd turned a peaceful morning into a rescue mission. When she finally descended from the cliffs, her feet bleeding and her expression unreadable, the crowd parted without a word. Someone whispered, "Who is she?" And an older man, the fisherman who'd laughed earlier, answered, "Someone who remembers what the rest of us forget." That night, news outlets would replay the footage again and again. The woman in the sand, the flare cutting the sky, the chopper descending like a guardian angel. They called her the Sandcastle soldier, but Emma didn't stay for any of it. She walked back to her small cabin at dusk, rinsed the salt from her hands, and set her bracelet quietly on the table. It blinked once, then went dark. She exhaled, whispering to no one. Mission complete, for now. In the weeks that followed, the beach at Portland Bay changed in quiet, imperceptible ways. The footprints faded, the tide smoothed the dunes, and the air went back to smelling like salt and sunscreen. But to those who had been there that day, nothing was the same. They spoke of the woman who came from nowhere, who built castles for ghosts, and whose calm voice commanded the wind. Some swore she vanished with the sunset. Others claimed they saw her walking home through the fog, her bracelet blinking once like a heartbeat before going dark. News crews descended within 24 hours, combing the sand for clues. They found fragments of her sandcastle, half washed away, its angles still too precise to be random, like something a soldier might draw to explain tactics. Experts examined photos of her design and noticed how her ridges aligned perfectly with the cliffs, the same spot where the rescue had happened. She mapped the battle before it began. One analyst said on live television, half in awe. The internet called her the Sand Fortress Sentinel. Military spokespeople refused to confirm her involvement at first. But rumors spread fast. Echo Legion, the unit lost in the 2019 ambush near the Tehran border, the one with a missing recon scout whose body was never recovered. When an old photo surfaced, Emma Rayner, in fatigues, grinning beside her squad. The match was undeniable. The scar above her eyebrow, the same determined stare. 3 days later, the Department of Defense released a statement. Asterisk, Sergeant Emma Rayner, Recon Specialist, Echo Legion, confirmed alive. Assisted in emergency coastal rescue. No comment at this time. Asterisk, that was all they said. But the story didn't stop there. Journalists dug deeper. They found records of a quiet woman renting a cabin along the coast, paying in cash. No social media, no visitors. She'd been seen volunteering at the local Veterans Center under a different name, teaching teenagers how to navigate by the stars, how to stay calm when the world loses its voice. The nurse at the center said she never spoke about her past, but every morning she checked the flag outside, making sure it never touched the ground. She saluted it once, the nurse whispered to a reporter, and I swear, her hand trembled. When reporters finally caught up with Emma, she didn't run. She met them at the pier, her hair tied back, her voice quiet but firm. They asked why she'd stayed hidden, why she'd never told the world she'd survived. She looked out at the waves for a long time before answering. Because surviving isn't the same as coming home, she said. I wasn't ready to be her again. One journalist asked what brought her back. She smiled faintly, almost sad. The channel opened, she said. When a soldier hears a distress call, you answer. Doesn't matter where or who you are now. The video of that interview went viral in hours. Veterans from around the world began posting tributes, calling her Scout, the lost recon who came back when needed most. A retired general wrote an op-ed titled, "The Soldier Who Built a Fortress from Sand," saying her instinct to defend wasn't madness. It was memory, discipline, and love for those who couldn't defend themselves. Donations flooded into veteran mental health programs. Someone left flowers and a folded flag at the beach where she'd sat, with a note reading, asterisk, for those who never stopped guarding us, even in silence. Asterisk. But Emma didn't stay to see the attention. The more the world talked, the further she withdrew. She spent her evenings walking the coastline, tracing the tide lines, whispering to herself as if marking coordinates no one else could see. She'd pause now and then, watching children build castles near the same spot she had, their towers crude but proud. Once, a little girl ran up to her and said, "My daddy says you were a hero." Emma smiled gently. Your daddy's wrong, she said. Heroes don't come back. They stay where they're needed. Then she knelt, showing the girl how to make a stronger base. Wider, steadier, harder for the waves to break. As summer faded, the crowds thinned, but the stories grew taller. Locals said her castle, the one that started it all, sometimes reappeared after storms, its ridges mysteriously reformed by the waves. Others claimed that at night, when the wind blew just right, you could hear static through the sea breeze, a faint whisper echoing from nowhere. Scout to base, status green. No one could explain it, and no one really wanted to. Some mysteries deserve their peace. A month later, the fisherman who'd first joked about her battle castle found an envelope in his tackle box, tucked beneath the Rio. Inside was a photograph. The beach that morning before the chaos. Emma crouched beside her fortress, smiling faintly. On the back, in block handwriting, it read, "You were right. I was planning a war, but just the kind that keeps people alive." The old man sat on his porch that night, staring at the sea, and didn't speak for a long time. When his grandson asked what he was thinking, he said softly, "That peace isn't something you're given. It's something people like her fight for every day, and we never even notice." By early winter, the cabin stood empty. Emma had left no note, no forwarding address. The only thing she left behind was her bracelet, sitting on the table, its light gone cold. A ranger found it during cleanup, turned it over to the local Veterans Hall, and it was placed in a glass case beside a simple plaque. Sergeant Emma Rayner, Echo Legion Recon. Missing in action, found in service. Every Memorial Day, the townspeople gather at that case. They tell the story to newcomers. The woman who built defenses from sand and turned a beach into a fortress. Children still build castles there, mimicking the design she made. Some call it superstition, others call it tradition, but every tower faces the sea, just like hers did. On the 3rd anniversary of the rescue, the wind was unusually calm. The sun broke through the clouds in wide golden bands, and the ocean gleamed like molten glass. The fisherman, now older and slower, walked to the waterline one last time. He bent down, dragging his hand through the cold surf, and froze. There, just beneath the foam, he saw the faint outline of a new sandcastle. Fresh, untouched, perfect. He looked around, but no one was there. A single set of footprints led away from it, vanishing into the mist. He laughed softly, tears wetting his beard. "Scout to base," he whispered, voice trembling. Message received. That night, the waves took the castle again, as they always did. But the story remained, carried from mouth to mouth, from shore to shore, about the quiet woman who came back from death not to fight, but to protect. She had no medals pinned to her chest, no parade, no speeches. Just the memory of her sand fortress and the whisper the sea seemed to keep alive. And when the wind turns cold in Portland Bay, if you listen close, you can still hear it between the crashing waves, a soft, unbroken voice calling through time. Scout to base, mission complete.